Namaskar and welcome to this exciting new episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. And Sat means truth, Logos in Latin means a study or science. So when we say Sattology, it means the science of truth or study of truth. It's a word invented by me, and I'm the author of 7 books in that series. You can check it out on Amazon. And it's an antonym of mythology. The word myth is a Sanskrit root dhatu. In Sanskrit, it's called root word is called dhatu or a principle. It's called myth means a lie, a fake, or imagination. The word mythology was coined in 1833, probably before that, but I saw the first usage in 1833 against the Hindu scriptures because they thought that they have no scientific basis, no archaeological basis, and there was no other basis for that. Therefore, the entire Hindu history, Ramayana, Mahabharata, everything is mythology. And later on, you see this word being used when the papal bull conspiracy was done across the world, where the entire native history of South America is called mythology. So the mythology means the study of fake, imagination, or a lie. So we coined this term Sattology because we have proved conclusively that the Aryan invasion theory was fake. We have proved that Ramayana and Mahabharata have historical proofs all over the world. And the descriptions, the geographical the descriptions have been pretty accurate. So without delay, we have a very, very famous guest today. I have been following him for a year to come here on our channel, and he has very graciously agreed to come. And I'm going to tell his name in the last so that most of you know, but I'll tell in the last. He has authored many books. He is a regular contributor at Toronto Sun. He is very popular in India, extremely popular in India. In fact, every single television channel wants to call him. And we as the students of Sattology or the truth, we are very honored to have him here. So without delay, let us welcome Shri Tarek Fatah.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
So like I told you, I like to use the term Mahoday. Mahoday means a great personality who has risen from the east like a sun. So my first point, and yesterday when we were talking about this show, and you mentioned some great deep insights where you said that Hindus in America are not are not participating so much open support to BLM, but you said something very insightful, which really goes against the grain of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma means to help everybody else, or wherever you see discrimination, we must act. And you made a great point over there. So before we start off, what is your view on today's Sanatana Dharma in the West? What do you see today?
Well, it's still, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I don't usually go to Sunday church, so it didn't affect me that much. And it's Ramadan while I'm having my cup of tea as well. So I'm not a religious person, but you cannot first of all, you cannot take it out of someone's hereditary of what they have inherited from the parents or the culture or surroundings. And all of that being said, my feeling is that the place of those representing Sanatana Dharma in the West have been out of the political scene and have not yet associated themselves with any movement that can easily be categorized today as the left, which is totally a post-Greta phenomena. The left was usually about social equality. Now it is about humpback whales and melting ice caps and that sort of everything economical has been taken away from it. But I realize that my origins are strictly Indian. We are converts from Hinduism to Islam in the mid-1800s. But either Indian ancestry or Arab influence which comes with Islam, I've noticed that these two identities are absent from the civil rights movement. Despite the fact that Indians or in California were active in the Ghadar movement in Sacramento and all that, but the political nature of the, especially the NRI, which is the non-residential Indian, even though they might be American, is absent from any movement that would require, how would I put it, solidarity with the other. So in the entire Black Lives Movement, there's a complete absence, bearing a few here and there, of anyone trying to associate themselves with America's greatest scar, which is hundreds of years of slavery. So the civil rights movement is completely bland. There's no one involved in that. We can't recall anyone from the people who came here in the 1800s or 1900s and settled down in India. We don't have anyone. Mostly we see are people trying to change their names, those who rise to prominence, and that's quite painful from my perspective, because I wrote a column about the decision taken in the Minneapolis police case, and I was peppered by white supremacists on one side, but mostly a Hindu or Sanatana Dharma associated Indians who were delighted to be on the side of the police officer who has been now found guilty on all three charges against him. This troubled me immensely, because the anti-Black nature of our culture, and by culture I mean the Indian culture back home, seems to have transferred itself right here, where the word Kalia is used in a derogatory sense, if not by us, by our parents who came here, and has a presence, but is completely denied. So if we are seekers of the truth, this is one aspect that we need to confront. When will we speak for the other when there's no benefit to us? This entire notion of how much is it in it for me should be completely foreign to someone who finds his place in Sanatana Dharma, because we are asked to, the most profound thing is to do something without not to have expectations. That's the very foundation of our psyche, that we need to do things where we completely consider not to have any expectation. I think it is in the Gita that this is enumerated quite vocally. But we merely use these props for discussion purposes. In action, perhaps I'm wrong, but I'm not seeing this. This type of dedication, which Vivekananda, when he came here, or others who came here earlier from India, demonstrated it. So that was an issue that troubled me, because I suddenly became directly in line of fire of people using horrific words against George Floyd, and especially when they would translate into using Hindi in Roman to describe him. I was taken aback, really, because it was, for me, a point where America, I think, is going to take a change for the better in race relations, or in recognizing all the factors that are our privilege, which do not exist for the color line, those on the other side of the color line, as Du Bois very famously identified as the history of people being on one or the other side of the color. But that uh, troubles me because even as a child, when I was not in the West, I was in the subcontinent, I knew that there was a profound contempt for anyone dark skinned. And to then find out that the people who are brown skinned are measuring themselves up to, oh, at least I'm not black. I saw this in the California riots when I first came to North America. When I came to live here, I noticed what happened in LA in the race riots over there, where many Indian stores owned by Indo-American businesses were looted because of the anger the Black community had towards Indians who would frequently, by Indians, when I say I mean the people of India, Americans of Indian ancestry, would use in front of them the word Kalia while they would be in the store themselves. A husband or the wife would talk to each other, whether in Gujarati or Punjabi, the two sort of dominant parental languages that are associated with us. This happened there, and it was a shock as well for me. I've noticed that within our communities in Guyana or Trinidad, Tobago, many of the Caribbean islands, I've seen that divide straight in the middle. And it is something that we who claim to inherit the Hindustani civilization or Bharati civilization or Indian should be above that. But I don't think there is leadership that would rise to the occasion and say no. Both the prominent Indian Americans who have stood up in politics in North America have changed their names and anglicized it, especially the Louisiana governor or the very smart and capable American representative to the United Nations. She's absolutely a wonderful person. I think she's presidential material, but she too had to change her name. No, she wouldn't be a Randhawa, or she wouldn't identify herself as being essentially from Punjabi origin. So those are things that I observe from the sidelines. I'm not there directly. Here in Canada, there's a greater acceptance and impact of people from Indian ancestry, sometimes in the wrong way, because the Khalistani movement is based in Canada. So it goes in the wrong direction. But there still is an element that identifies itself, or Canada is somehow linked to the early banning of Indians coming from the Pacific side in Vancouver. The Komagata Maru affair is quite part of Canadian heritage right now. So those were my observations. I don't know where you want to take this with, or if you want me to stop or go ahead, but I leave it to you. You're moderating this. I just don't know what my time frame is, but I'm more than happy to discuss it if people have questions.
So one of the things is, Mahoday, one of the things is that in Jagannath Puri, it's a very ancient town in India.
Yes.
There, Krishna is also called Kalia. Love.
Yeah. Yes.
Because they call him down as Kalia, come down. So when Rath Yatra comes down, they do that. Now, in coming to the points, you raised such an important, pertinent points actually, and which I think you are a great analyst, and I read your articles regularly. So one of the things which comes to my mind based on what you said just now is that the Sanatan, you're absolutely right. We talk big words, but actions are lacking. I totally agree with you. When we say Sarva Sukhino Bhavantu, and we say that let everybody be happy. We say the whole world is one family. But
Yes,
somewhere we see that the followers of this great culture, Sanatana Dharma, who also have bigger responsibility. So when you call yourself great, you have responsibility also great. And so
absolutely.
your karma has to follow what you speak. Otherwise, you are called a hypocrite. And we speak these big words, but I agree with you that our actions lack in that direction. And so, what do you have to say, that what are the actions needed, which will take us in the, actually we follow what we preach.
I'll give you an example. I went to New York 2 years ago at an event organized by, I think, the Hindu American Society or something, that people were associating themselves with power, not with political process or political party. So someone, at least at one home, I saw the family pictures of them both with Democratic senators as well as Republican. So I dared to ask, so what are you Democrats or Republicans or how? And for them, that question was, why should it matter? We know them. So the actions of the leadership had less to do with what was good from their perspective about the future of the United States, how they want to see it develop in the next century, and considering the new forces that have come up. Nobody thought that China or Islamists would pose such a threat to the US, and have such a bizarre combination, which I call Sharia Bolshevism, is the Islamists and the communists both have a single target. And the community is not serious about what is politics. I mean, you can be Republican, you could be independent, you could be Democrat, but how could you be all to all things? That means you are not tied to the soil in a way that you consider the founding fathers' dream of extending in the future. How will you see that the concept of happiness is embedded in a society where the rest of the world, being happy itself was considered sinful? It says, zyada nahi hasne ki zarurat hai, muh khol ke nahi haso. I mean, and here you are in a country whose basic foundation is, in its founding fathers' description, is pursuit of happiness. How will we do this? Because our measure of someone being serious is that he should not be happy. He should have that necessary intellectual frown on the face to be considered as worthy of advising someone. If somebody is happy, the culture where I come from is a non-serious person. Somebody has to suffer for them to be believed. कोले के ऊपर आग के ऊपर चल के जो आया है, I'm sorry if I'm sharing, people walking on burning coal are considered to be very solid thinkers. No, I mean, Aristotle or Averroes didn't have to be self-flagellating themselves just to be believed into what they believed in. So that what I call the East of Greece phenomena that stretches all the way from Turkey to Japan has not undergone the Reformation, the Enlightenment era, almost the 200-300 years that it took for Western society to evolve, or Western civilization to evolve into issues of liberty, individual belief, separation of religion and state, not having the Pope decide what we do or not do. And that foundation could have been built very easily in the Indian subcontinent, except the parting British just chopped off our limbs, and India is without Bengal and Punjab and Sindh. The very, well, I'm diverging now, but those are the tragedies or experiences or observations that have to be in our mind, that we were not careful in in not celebrating our differences, to end up in a stage where in the 1870s or 1880s, nobody knew in Sacramento whether the Ghadarites, as they call it. By the way, I have a directory of all the members of the Ghadar movement in Sacramento. This was absent for them, whether they were from Sanatana Dharma or whether they were Muslim or whether they were Sikhs. They took the image from the Great War of Independence of 1857. Today, if somebody brought it up, people give a blank look. It is the first great war of independence that took place where nobody knew what the other guy's religion was. Rani Jhansi, doesn't matter. But or the people from Sindh who came in, I know there are places in Karachi where people whose grandparents went to fight. There were Bengalis, there were Tamils, everybody was involved in one thing, in that we do not need someone from outside to tell us how to live. And I had been 1,000 years, 800 years perhaps before that, where everyone and his uncle thought he had the right to enter Hindustan and, excuse the word, bugger us all up, dig us up, destroy us, kill us. People just sat there in ahimsa. And it was it, this time will pass. And 1857, at that time, Americans of Indian ancestry were thinking about the world. There was no India or Pakistan or Hindu Muslim thing. And today's generation is those who were born here in America of Indian ancestry. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel they don't have the zeal to say that they come from a land that created chess. For goodness sake, that alone should get us a free passport to travel everywhere. This guy comes from a family that made chess. Yes, that's what we didn't do black and white checkerboards. The rest of the world was playing checkers. We were playing chess, for goodness sake. We irrigated land. We have the largest rivers. Mountains, rivers, deserts, snow, minus 20 degrees to plus 40 degrees in the same day in the same country. And the same language, and you can speak to each other, the accents are acceptable. That we turned into the agenda of good old kings and queens of Great Britain. I don't know why they call them great, but they left us literally with cutting the limbs off Bharat. And we haven't yet reconciled with that. We've just accepted it. In some ways, there's a thought in my mind that maybe it was for the good, but then I feel the pain. Why should someone, what was Peshawar called at that time?
Pushpur.
Pushpur. Someone from Pushpur could go to Chennai by train, in the early 1900s. They would, and Calcutta to Lahore, why not? I mean, what's his name? The great Indian freedom fighter of the Indian National Army.
Subhash Chandra Bose.
Bose went from Calcutta, escaped with a Pashtun guy all the way to Lahore. From there, he entered Peshawar and into Central Asia to go all the way to Europe. Do you think that Pashtun guy said, oh no, I think Netaji is Hindu? Netaji didn't invoke that. This guy didn't invoke anything. Their thought was a free country where, even if what we do is not the best thing sometimes, but Savarkar has been depicted as a villain. The poor guy should be a hero. I mean, if you suffer in Andaman Islands in solitary confinement and write your book on Hindutva on the walls of the jail cell. Oh, there has to be credit given to that. And I don't think anybody's read that booklet. And there are critics of him, that he's a communalist. I said he was an atheist. He didn't believe in anything. And you have to respect him. His book on the 1857 War of Independence is a classic. That's the first book as a 13-year-old child I read. I didn't know who was Savarkar, but I knew everything about 1857 because I realized I was an early student of history. That's the turning point. That's when the Bhakti movement was crushed by the British, because the Bhakti movement said, what's the phrase in Sanatana Dharma, we are all one.
Sudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Yes. And that's the motto of Indian civilization. The truth will always triumph. But we said, no, let's hide that for a minute. So what my only concern is, I'm terrified. My age, I'm 70 plus now, maybe 70, am I 71? Yes, 71. That I don't see anyone who is taking pride, and I don't mean pride in a way of arrogance or nationalism, in pride in that the only civilization that survived as an ancient civilization is the Hind. There is nothing else. Everything else, whether it was the Boxer wars in Beijing or the Egyptian society or Persians, all disappeared, scattered before the onslaught of the Arabs. But Hindustan is still there. You couldn't be wiped out despite having people whose sole mission was to come to India and kill and wipe out every Hindu and every Hindu temple. That's what Ghazwa Hind is. And it's a philosophy targeted at Hindustan, in which Hindustanis don't know about it. It's as if a grand plan has been written for you. He said, but if I study this, it will not affect my job grading. I don't need to know this to become rich. So why should I read about what Ghazwa Hind is? Well, that's targeted at you specifically. 1 billion people have been told we have to destroy India till every Hindu is dead. And if somebody says, well, I got my grandfather taking care of my land near Bombay, why should I worry? People should be worried if there are such fascistic, Nazi-like dream of dominance. We should be the ones who should be saying, beware. We have gone through 800 years of that plunder. Should be telling fellow Americans, watch out. 9/11 is the first sampling they've done. They're in every city, they're everywhere, but they can get away free by expressing the most hate for the United States or Western civilization. And yet, whether you look at France, look at how many people in Pakistan today want the French president's head. No other place wants to do that. But we did get a Tunisian to kill a French woman day before yesterday. He just slashed her throat. She's dead. This guy knows he's going to paradise. That's where he's going to get his first date. These poor ugly people have no girlfriends. We need to make sure that you pass a life. What sort of a human being doesn't fall in love? Wow. I mean, just pity that person. He will never, ever know a person of the other gender as one that humans, civilization has evolved out of. No, we will start living when we go to paradise. So we can even suggest, and I would say this, we've turned a religion into a death cult. And the people who are most aware of this out of experience, have been made into pacifists who say that theek hai, it's okay, you can marry 4 women. At least it's not my sisters going through that trouble. So you automatically throw out people from your neighborhood as victims of what horrible things happen to women.
So one of the you gave a great historical background. 1919, Afghanistan was cut off from India.
Yes.
1947, Pakistan and Bangladesh was cut off.
Yep.
1948, Sri Lanka
Yep.
was cut off. 1948, Burma was cut off.
Yes.
So India, what is remaining is already the 5 countries have been created out of the British India.
Yeah.
5 large countries, out of which 2 do not like India at all, or 3, but rest of the people are just there. And you also mentioned a very good point about the Hindu ignorance and also the Hindu insensitiveness, and also living in a fake past glorious world. Yes, Ram and Krishna were great, but what about today? What does your dharma tell you to do today? And one of the essential things which Bhagavad Gita tells is that wherever there is a dharma or
Yes.
the righteousness is missing, a dharmic follower must act.
Yeah.
And that is the and I also blame the colonial Max Mullers and Macaulays and all those people who translated the scriptures in such a way to Christianize the Hindu scriptures. So
I know, but we kick them out. That's the point. My point is, you got the opportunity. You are living in a country in Western civilization where truth cares. I mean, you can fight for your rights. You can fight for other people's rights.
correct.
I mean, but you cannot always, can never be as a group based on how fair you are. This fair and lovely culture should be crushed into the shoes. I don't mind if it's a young teenager who wants to look pretty and thinks that, but when it comes to serious natures of race relations, then black is beautiful, man. I love the guys who took the salute in Mexico. You remember? Well, you would not be there. You're too young for that. But at Mexico Olympics, 2 guys got up and gave the tight fist salute. Everybody got upset. I was in college at that time. I said, this is good stuff, man. They told the man where to go, and it's not, for example, if America was, let's put it this way, an anti-Islamic country, as most of my co-religionists would love to state and put on 2 personalities. One is, oh, we love America. And then you go and praise and 72 times a day curse Christians and Jews in your daily prayers. And on Fridays, you curse the Hindus. So, but this is the United States, where Muhammad Ali is the most popular sportsman alive. Where Khalid Hosseini's books were the kite runners of, I forget that. It's the bestseller for 7-8 years. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar didn't fall from space. People you think, oh, no, I'm not going to support. People were neutral towards them. They loved them for what they contributed, right? So this notion that we need to take sides in a way where I don't know the logic of not being sensitive to George Floyd's death. I find that suffocating, that anyone would consider him worthy of death and justify the police officer who killed him, despite the fact that there was a jury, which was a majority white jury, that there was police officers, there were experts, everyone and his uncle got on tape, video over there. And my reading is that on the social media, primarily Indian Americans were willing to, would have been satisfied if the police officer would have been found not guilty. That's troubling.
I'll tell you one more fact. And since you went to the Northeast, and I was hoping you'll come to San Diego and visit us. But uh,
I've been there. Great place.
now I'll invite you again this time. S- So you mentioned it so well, and because you're a writer and thinker, you observe things, and you. So I tell you one thing about Indian Americans: they would spend millions of dollars for a photo op to
Yes.
put on their walls, but they will not spend even thousands on actually working on the root cause. And
Hmm.
I tell you examples, and I won't take any names. Millions of dollars of chairs have been funded by Indian Americans in American universities,
Yes.
but not a single one of them focuses on establishing Sanatana Dharma or talking about its principles to the regular
Hmm.
Americans.
Right.
Contrast that with Chinese. Chinese have invested, with the Chinese government, of course, Confucius institutes or Confucius branded institutes in every single university today, in the major university. And Indian Americans, in their personal capacity, have funded more money than Chinese.
Yes.
So when they say that we are not spending money, we are spending money, but in the wrong place.
Yes.
We want the photo op on our wall, which will die its own death, rather
Yes.
than actually working at the community level for talking about our values, and also supporting our researchers, because many of the researchers
Absolutely.
do great effect. And I call it it's like a crab in a wall mindset, crab in a well mindset,
Yes.
where
Yes.
we are inside the crab and we don't want anyone to rise. When we are custodians, or we are the representatives of the greatest culture on the planet, which is the most tolerant one, which
Yes.
can, and you yourself have
Yeah, which can
been one of the
accommodate
best,
anyone.
anyone. And
India had no passport restrictions. It took in the Zoroastrians as well as the guys who killed the Zoroastrians. But there is one point that the Chinese government and its Communist Party has invested money from a strategic point of view. You forget the fact of the infiltration of American universities by Middle Eastern investors. You forget the power of the Bin Ladens, that when every flight in United States was grounded, there were flights that took out hundreds of Saudis belonging to the Bin Laden family that were allowed to fly out. You go to the universities and you go to the chairs. I can tell you at the University of Toronto, uh, uh, entire the entire groups of people are prepared to um, who believe seriously in Ghazwa Hind philosophy, and uh, um, who sincerely believe in every aspect of Sharia law that should be implemented here. And had it not been for some of us in Ontario and a Muslim woman from North Africa in Quebec, Sharia law was being brought into Canada. And we had absolutely no resistance, no help from anyone except those Muslims who understood that this was would be an irreversible. Even now, there's a law that you cannot, what's called anti-Islamophobia law in Canada, brought in by Mr. Trudeau. You know, this catering to ethnic identities and all that, by states-funded ventures, is also a problem that nobody raises. I've seen in Ramadan loudspeakers on mosques where the governments have allowed them for preaching that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet, and the rest of you can go to hell. So this is in the West happening. It's not taking the Chinese to do this. It's taking other forces that live within us who hate Western civilization, where I might just remind you that 9/11, the significance of that date, by the way, this is when your new president will withdraw all forces from Afghanistan. Hilarious. But 9/11 essentially is the date in 1684 when, at the gates of Vienna, the Austrians, with the help of Lithuanians, rebuffed and stopped the expansion of the Ottoman Empire and defeated them. That's 9/11. I have yet to hear anyone figure out why the date 9/11 is so significant. And it's troubling as well. Why won't people know that this is happening? And why would no one who has the experience of dealing with this talk about it or raise it?
The white apologism or apologistic
Guilt would be the right word.
Yeah, apologism, the white guilt, has also accentuated that, because many of the people who are tired of the Iraq wars and the long Afghanistan wars, they have also come back. And you're right, absolutely right. The Middle Eastern influence is very strong at the campuses nowadays. Literally every single Hindu club is targeted, and every single Hindu, the caste-based thing, which is caste is a Portuguese word, it is not an Indian word. And most of the Indians don't even know that casta is a very common Spanish word, and it was a class society. And Herbert Hope Risley in 1900s, he's the one who introduced officially the caste system in India, enforced it. I mean, not enforcement was done by them. But the ignorance of Hindus is also a large part to be blamed. But also the point is that the strategic nature has vanished in many ways, where they could be the ambassadors of I see you defending more than many of the Hindus also. And
you'll see my head off also very soon. You have no idea about the resolute nature of the threat. This is what I fail to understand. Why can't this go to members of Congress? I mean, why is Ro Khanna a member of the Pakistani caucus? For goodness sake, you in California, why don't you go and talk to him? The fine gentleman. You in Minneapolis, you got that hijabi Somali who married her brother as a member of Congress. For goodness sake, I mean, अपने बाल खींच के मर जाने को जी चाहता है. How can you do this?
American democracy has become a joke in many people's mind now. But the point is here is that we are seeing very strategic moves by everyone else against the Hindu culture, very Sanatana Dharma culture, and around 50 million Americans follow yoga, and they call themselves agnostic. Agnostic pretty much means that they believe in yoga, meditation, and other things. Usually, don't believe in the Christian or the religions of the book.
Yeah,
and there is a large percentage of people becoming ex-Muslims also in America, which is 25% of all Muslims in USA are ex-Muslims. And
I wouldn't take that claim too far. I tell you what.
I read it on a.
I tell you, there are elements within. For example, the large scale, the Iranian community, I would suggest, have tasted the reality of Islamic law in their lives and have fled from there. You would understand it. But if you took Muslims of Indian or Pakistani origin, you'll see the opposite reaction. I think that you don't run away from the goal if you want to stop the goals from being scored on you. So
Indian Muslims are far radicalized, more, and also I want to talk about the term radicalized also, because I don't, radical. I don't know who is not radical. We don't know that. So, but
by the way, let me interject and tell you what is our contribution to the jihadi radicalization. Did you know that Indian or Pakistani Muslims when the women were being distributed by ISIS, they were told that an Indian, in which Pakistanis are, Bangladeshis are also included, by law cannot have an Arab woman as a sexual partner. So you can, an Arab woman can never have an Indian husband or someone of that. Or forget about husbands, just where it was a full-scale sex market where women were being sold and bought. But our guys from Upper were only restricted to cooking and toilet cleaning. They said, no, from the 16th century onwards, Ibn Kathir, which is the interpretation of the Quran, said that for a non-Arab to think he's equal to an Arab is a sin. So if you believe in that, and you, I see various shades of that in India where the word love jihad has come up, which I have mixed opinion about that. But there are people fully educated who've done their academic work, who are PhDs, who are teaching in universities, who believe essentially in what their forefathers believed in the 12th century. For them, those two digits are just played around. Oh, 12th century, 21st, what's the big deal? It's the same numbers. They still believe in the quest of a singular world domination. This hasn't gone away. So if you can't figure that out, and if you can't even think about that there is one country at least that has a nuclear bomb and missiles that can reach Europe or Israel, well, India is just next door, and nobody talks about it. So how will we talk about it unless and until those who are the primary victims of that ideology, which is Bharat, they are the people who can say, we know what's happening. We know the racism we face from Arabs. Those of us who have worked in the Middle East, we know how we are treated. I spent 10 years of my life there. It was horrific. You are addressed as Ya Abdi, or my slave, to Black people. So on the question of, again, it falls back again on race relations, that if there is no clarity that the color of your skin should not determine your position in society, irrespective of past horrific mistakes made. Banning of slave trade was essentially done, ironically, by British laws. Even when the Arabs were buying and selling slaves right up to 1960s in Yemen. And all the slaves' prices were determined by their skin color. That has to be addressed, that has to be taken into account. China is one part of the strategic threat America faces, whether it bribes, whether it is, I heard Pakistanis do it too, envelopes full of $25,000 that exchange hands and sometimes keep men and women of intellect submit into silence. Somebody's got to speak up, and I feel that burden falls on Americans of Indian ancestry who understand that, or should be made to understand, that the civilization could have been wiped out, clean, just like the Zoroastrians disappeared from Persia. That has to be brought in. Imagine, there is nothing left of the Persian or the Egyptians. The Byzantines wiped out, clean. Today, we have a situation where Turkey can take back Hagia Sophia, a cathedral, Eastern Orthodox Church, and make it into a mosque. And the rest of the EU and America, everybody. Just today, thank God, I don't know, maybe it was a better day for people who seek justice that the American president recognized the Armenian genocide. I would love to see Indians involved in that, These are civilizations that got wiped out. Imagine 1 million people got slaughtered on 1915. This is when our parents' generation was being born. They killed 1 million people and went away scot-free. So things can turn around, but then I tell my Armenian friends, you know absolutely nothing about India. And they surprise me by how much they know. So our existence should be as truth tellers. We can't just have a slogan that truth triumphs. We need to be the embodiment of that truth. People should say, if these are people from Hindustan, they cannot lie. They will think of others before they think of themselves, and have no expectations is such a beautiful, powerful prayer or direction. I insist that my friends of whatever race, religion they understand this philosophy when they sit and talk. You should have no expectations. It's amazing. And it will come. Work, it's a law of physics. That energy has to transfer into something else. And I think it's forgotten on the people who gave this to us.
Exactly. I think there was a time when in the ancient history, you can see that the Indians used to set a benchmark of dharma. Dharma doesn't mean religion. Dharma means a law, a principle of righteousness, a platform of truth. And that's what made India very influential in economy and politics and other things. And somehow Indians have forgotten that. And they're busy in putting photo ops on the walls rather than actually working for it. And
I suggest to them at least put one political party's picture. You cannot have a Republican senator and the next time the Democrats come up, they have both the pictures there.
No, actually, that only shows that they donated to both of them. That's what they're showing. But the question whether anyone listened to them, that's a different point altogether.
Yeah, but they can show to others.
Yes, it's like a brownie point for Instagram and Facebook. And also to impress the guests in the house that how well connected they are.
To impress the guests. I was in Rochester one day and I saw a wonderful auntie getting out of a high SUV and she was driving it wearing stilettos and a sari. She couldn't get out of her own car. I said, why are you driving an expensive SUV? For goodness sake, drive a Civic. Somebody had to help her out. But she's driving a huge truck-like thing, which was like a monster truck, But, अरे भाई साड़ी के साथ वो नहीं जाता truck. मान लो मेरी बात, माफ कर दो. We know that your jewelry you are wearing is worth 3 times the value of the truck. Accepted. अभी ना truck किधर से इसको park कहाँ करेंगे? Oh, I'd love to live in the US. I'd get under the skin of my brothers.
No, another biggest joke, and I would also like to ask in a little bit serious tone to you, is that the concept of so most of the Hindus, when they study in the US, Hindu Americans, Indian Americans, or even people from South Asia, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, most of them share common values in their homes.
Yes.
But when it comes to outside, and I'll specifically target the Hindu Americans, when it comes to outside, there is a false bravado of greatness, but the other guy, or the opposite of them, they don't understand that. They are only looking at their dollars, nothing else. Yes. And they think that when they're in the USA, and because they have the financial might, that the giving the dollars will change somebody's mindset. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And the mindset doesn't change. Now, in that scenario, what happens is that they pay the money to Ro Khanna, you took the name, and Tremala Jaipal and people
Yes.
like
Oh my God.
Raja Krishnamurthy and Nikki Haley,
Yes.
or even I will take the name of one of the prominent American, the Tulsi Gabbard also. Tulsi Gabbard has done a lot of work, but still, when they pay the money, they do not ask them, because America is a society of asks. So
Mhm.
when you ask, only you get it. The duck which quacks the loudest gets a cracker. Now,
Mhm.
they don't ask for anything because they don't know what to ask. They only
It's
introduce
a
them.
blank pitch.
It's a
You are
blank
so,
pitch.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like they're just asking. They don't even ask. They hand over the money and without getting anything back in return. Like one doctor in the US, I'll not say where, but in the US, spent almost $200 million on the university. Spent his personal money, and in return, what he got was kicked out of the board of the university.
No.
This is the thing scenario we have, because uh, see, when you talk about big philosophy, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and you cannot tell me how many chapters in Bhagavad Gita is the only book which doesn't talk about any community. It talks
Mhm.
about the soul, and it is the most popular spiritual book in USA. One of my books, the Hindu
Yes.
Bible, got sold extensively in the US, and where I presented Bhagavad Gita as in their name, the Hindu Bible, to
Mhm.
which I got opposed by the Hindu community. Why are putting the word Bible there? Because they won't understand Bhagavad Gita in the local American
Yeah,
people.
of course.
So
You should have told them you're doing guerrilla war.
I'm glad you say that. But and even the intelligent Indian, many Indian politicians love that term. So my point is that what do you say to these people who are pretending to sleep? They're acting to sleep.
Yeah,
You
you
know, you
can't
can
wake
wake up
them.
a sleeping guy. You cannot wake them up, even
You
if you throw
can
water. They was acting all the way.
keep on trying. Believe me. Have no expectation. Things will happen. Believe me. Trust me. I genuinely believe that things will change for the better. And I'm a Marxist as well, so I know what is dialectical materialism, and I understand how the convulsions of society. One must read Marx. Honest to God. And his book on 1857 War of Independence, which is not available anywhere. He was a reporter for the New York Tribune.
Uh-huh.
Karl Marx was filing stories. खाने को भी तो चाहिए ना कुछ. वो न्यूयॉर्क ट्रिब्यून पेपर था, and he was writing for it throughout the 1857 war, and many profound things he wrote over there. But anyway, वो मेरा पुराना लेफ्टिज्म मेरे में रहने दो. But you're doing wonderful job just by talking. I don't know how many people see what you're saying, but at least someone might catch. क्या कहते हैं हम लोग, कीड़ा किसी को लग जाएगा. So instead of pandemic or COVID-19, we should get some Indian what is the word they're using, mutant. हम बोले हमारा इंडियन वायरस तुम एक्सेप्ट करो, आपको अकल आ जाएगी. China virus नहीं चाहिए.
Thank you so much, Tarek, for this. It's a pleasure. And I think
Not at all.
we are talking for the first time, but both of us enjoyed this talk. And you gave very important messages also, which are relevant for Indians in the US as well as Bharatiya all over the world, including any country where you are living and you're watching this show. And so thank you so much, Tarek ji. And Mahoday, I really enjoyed talking with you. And we'll have more such conversations which are more directed towards some outcome and
Okay.
benefiting.
Inshallah, as we say, inshallah.
Jai Jagannath.
Take care. Namaskar. Okay, bye.